Hello! Before we dive into this episode, I want to tell you about a series of career events being run by Food Matters Live in November 2022. It's a great opportunity for students from the fields of engineering, nutrition and food science to network with other graduates and industry leaders and to learn essential skills that are going to help them shape the future. It's also a fantastic opportunity for companies to partner with us and meet those top graduates who are shaping the future of the industry. As if that wasn't enough, we'll also be recording some live episodes of this podcast at the events, and so you'll get to see what really happens behind this microphone. This is part of a series of live events we're planning starting in London on the 1st and 2nd of November and in Birmingham on the 7th of November. If you're running a course and think your students might be interested, or if you work in the food and drinks industry and would like the opportunity to meet these potential employees of the future, do please send us an email to info@foodmatterslive.com or go to our website foodmatterslive.com and search career events. Now, here's the podcast. Hello, you're listening to Career Conversations, a series that's part of the Food Matters Live podcast. I'm Alicia Roche, a chef and food journalist, and together we'll meet experts in cooking, mixology, the environment, psychology, branding, social media, and all sorts, as we learn about the surprisingly varied roles that go way beyond the kitchen. So today you can hear me absolutely fangirling over celebrity chocolatier Paul A. Young. You might have seen him on Saturday Kitchen or ITV This Morning, or you might just know his incredible creations from Instagram or one of his shops. One thing is certain, Paul is one of the best chocolate makers in the world, and he really opened up to me about the ups and downs of getting there, chef burnout, and how much he enjoyed writing this new book of his, The Joy of Chocolate. I'll be back at the end with some key info about how you too can break into this deliciously decadent world of chocolate. But for now, settle in, maybe with a hot chocolate, and enjoy the podcast. I always ask anyone to say what their job title is, but with you I guess it's a bit strange. If you were talking to someone down the bus stop, what would you say it is that you do?
The first thing I always say is chocolatier, because it's the best conversation starter. I mean, if you say you're a chocolatier in a room of lots of people, you're probably the only one. Even though I'm a chef, an author and other things, saying a chocolatier makes people smile.
You are one of the best chocolatiers alive right now. You're one of the best in the world. So when I say things like that, do you think to yourself, yeah, I am. I'm pretty much that good? Or do you feel a little bit like imposter syndrome still, even now when you're this well known?
It's funny because I remember my best friend Kate, who used to do our PR for us, Nudge PR. I remember her saying to me once, do you not realise how good you are at what you do? And I remember being so busy and so focused and in my bubble of having the business, growing it and creating and having to create a lot and often, that I was just doing what I loved doing, making people happy, generating chocolates. And then it's actually the last couple of years where I've been able to step sideways ever so slightly, write a new book, and then look and really appreciate how much work I've done over the past years and where I am now. So on one side, yeah, I go, I'm fabulous. I've enjoyed what I do and I feel lucky to have all these skills and to be able to work with chocolate and fantastic people. But there's another side of my personality, which is need to know more. What's next? What can I learn? How can I improve?
That's great. And that's something I hear a lot from founders or successful people that we interview on this podcast, that you need to find a line of work that you're passionate about, but where you always continue to learn.
Yeah, if you stop learning, I think that if you feel stuck, if anyone's listening right now and feels, I feel stuck in a rut, or I'm maybe bored at work, or I feel like I'm not progressing at work, it may simply be down to you've stopped learning, and you shouldn't feel guilty about that. It may not be entirely your responsibility. It could be the possibilities that are being given to you at work or not. Or you need to give yourself a kick up the bum and say, I've got really comfortable in my job. Now I need to push myself a little bit, because it is hard to do that when you're juggling life's things, isn't it?
But speaking of learning, what did you initially set out to study? Let's say if we go back to school or uni or any further studies, what were you doing?
At school, I wasn't so academic. I really enjoyed the arts. So I actually got into art college. And the day before, and I'm not sure I've ever told anybody this in the world, apart from my family, the day before I was meant to go to art college, I dropped out and decided to go to catering college because I thought, how will I get a job? How will I pay my way in art? But cooking means I can cook anywhere, for anyone, at any time. I will always have a job because people always need to eat. So I studied hotel and catering management at New College Durham. It was a BTEC course, and I did a foundation course for a year, then 2 years BTEC after that, and it was chef training, classic French. Back then, that was 1989 when I started. So chef training, but then there's managerial training, financial stuff, housekeeping. So that was my grounding. That was where I started. But I got a part-time job as soon as I started college as a chef, and I just knew immediately that cooking was my thing. But that's because I'd had that in my life as a child growing up as well, from a very bakery style family. We baked biscuits and cakes and pies as an ordinary thing rather than buying them, particularly on Sundays. And I knew that it was sweets. Even though I needed all the other training, I gravitated towards sweet things at every possible opportunity.
So when you went into kitchens full time, did you immediately go into the pastry section, or did you have a dabble with like the grill or the hot meat section, the sauces?
I did everything because I couldn't get a pastry chef job. I signed up with an agency called City Catering, and I thought, this is the way for me to try. Lots of different jobs, week after week, day after day, in different environments. So I would work in a care home one day, in a hotel the next week in a restaurant, then maybe in a corporate kitchen, and so on, and outside catering. And they gave me a 1-week job at Bramham Park, which is a country park outside Leeds, and it was Marco Pierre White and his chefs heading up Land Rover's Discovery Roadshow. And it was 1 week outside catering, it was lunch and afternoon tea, and I ended up being in the pastry tent, which meant doing the afternoon tea and desserts. And I got asked if I would stay on for the rest of the tour. So all around the country for the rest of the year, going to different places to promote Land Rover Discovery. And halfway through that, the most amazing thing happened. I got offered a job at the Criterion Brasserie from Marco Pierre White and his executive pastry chef Roger Pisey, who I'm still in touch with both of them. This was in 1996, to be a commis pastry chef. And that's when the world changed, my world changed. Something Marco did was, he occasionally would stand over me. You know how big he is, and I'm quite petite. He'd stand over me and watch me work. And we were 12 hours into about an 16 to 18 hour shift. They were long days. And Marco said, Paul, your chef whites are very creased. And he explained to me how to come to work, have another chef's jacket to put on, but how to wash it, iron it, fold it, put it inside a plastic bag, roll it up so that I could change into a non-creased uniform. And at the time I went, why is he telling me this and no one else? Everybody else is creased. And I remember later on these little things would happen, and I took it that he was nurturing. That was his 1 or 2 minutes of saying to me, maybe I can see there's talent in you. To improve even more, do these small things. If you're tidy, your work is tidy. If you're tidy, you feel proud. If you're tidy, you're in control. If you're tidy, you can do anything. Which stayed with me and has stayed with me from that day onwards. He gave me a bit of his time, which I was very appreciative of. And I did eventually head up his kitchens. I became a head pastry chef.
When you're back in that kitchen, think back to that time, and you're starting to really realise how good you are and that other people are believing in you. How big were you dreaming at that stage? Were you thinking, I'd quite like a slice of this pie, I'd like my own place, I'd like my own business? What was going through your mind?
I never wanted my own restaurant. I don't know why. I love the whole experience of dining. I like this. I've been a waiter before. I enjoy the service side of my career. I never wanted to own a restaurant. All I knew was I wanted to be an exceptional pastry chef. So for me, getting to be head pastry chef was my goal. And I reached that goal, and I did that for 18 months and loved it. At that point, I had no idea where my career was going to go at all, because I just was on the treadmill of, this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to do the best I can, get to the best I can do. But I left the restaurant because I got ill. So I just couldn't keep up the pace anymore. So I decided to leave. And at that point, I wasn't sure where things would go next.
I'm really sorry to hear that, and I didn't know that. And you absolutely don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but was that something to do with you working so hard and burning out?
Yeah, I didn't know how to look after myself. So we were working long hours, probably not eating well. I'm saying probably. Let's change the language. I wasn't eating very well. That's no reflection on Marco and the team. That's my own responsibility. You know, I was having a little bit of lemon tart left from last night for breakfast, a little bit of bread and butter left from last night, and so on, and picking the way through the day, having espressos and just not drinking enough water, and not looking after myself. And I just got true proper burnout, where I had to go and get looked after, and they said you are seriously dehydrated and you're actually malnourished. And I was shocked. I shocked myself. I said, I've got an amazing job. I love my job. And they just said, well, you need to be nourishing yourself to work at this pace. You know, you look at, and this was totally my own responsibility. I don't ever blame anyone else for that, because I could have done something differently. But I did make a choice that day where I said, I'm done for now. Never an end, just done for now. And I handed my notice in that day. I just knew it was time. And I took 3 months off and then went into product development, a job that was as creative, that was 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. with bank holidays off, Friday nights off, Saturdays and Sundays off. It was bizarre, but it was fantastic. It was a completely different life. Very unusually, I had a phone call from a chef that I worked with at Quo Vadis, who had become a head chef, who was heading up a kitchen in Mayfair. It was called La Rascasse at Café Grand Prix, and it was a fine dining restaurant. And I became head pastry chef there for 18 months. So I went back into pastry. But that job led to other possibilities. Now, this is when social media was just starting to kind of gear up a little bit. And I was playing with chocolate a tiny bit. And I started to do some food festivals. And I'd done one episode of BBC Two's Food and Drink when I was working for Marco. And I was at this job and I was thinking, do you know what? I really want to share what I do with people. And I was watching a TV show called Good Food Live on UK TV Food. It was presented by Jenny Barnett. It then changed its name actually to Great Food Live. And it was a daily live show like this morning, that kind of program, with live content, guests and chefs cooking. And I remember watching it, and I remember watching quite a famous chef cook something, and I went, oh my goodness, I'm totally fed up of seeing another rhubarb crumble, a bad one at that.
Who was it?
No, I'm not telling you, I can't tell you. I just can't watch another, because I was watching this program, so I wanted to see chefs cooking. And I didn't have a computer, and I remember writing a letter. So I wrote a physical letter to the commissioner and the owner of the channel, I think it was, saying who I was, what I'd done, and that I would love the opportunity to show something different on the show. And surprise, surprise, I received a letter back asking for a meeting. had the meeting, and then they invited me to have a screen test. I mean, I'd never done a screen test before. So I went into the studio, made a recipe, and they sent me, I think it was rang me up or sent me a letter saying, yes, we'd like to have you on the live show. And the first recipe I made was a chocolate tortellini recipe. I had a wonderful time, and I stayed on the show for about 7 years as a guest, as a frequent guest. And that, while I was doing that and had the job as head pastry chef, I thought, hang on a minute, I'm really enjoying the freedom. So I decided to leave after 18 months, and I had a business card made. And I handed my business card to everybody I met. And I did start doing food festivals. And I kept bumping into Rococo chocolates at Henrietta Green's Food Lovers Festival in Covent Garden. And the deal there was you go around the market, you gather lots of ingredients, and you demonstrate them on stage. And I always picked up chocolate. And that's the seed. That little seed of picking up chocolate to make a dessert on stage led to me picking up chocolates and going, oh, chocolates in London, nice. But there weren't many chocolates that I really, truly thought were out there, that were freshly handmade, unpreserved, exciting, seasonally changing. And that little seed stayed in my head for quite a while before anything else happened. So that was the seed of chocolate. So totally unplanned.
And early doors in the world of chocolate, you became kind of famous for, let's say it, you invented the salted caramel. Chocolate salted caramel. That's your baby, isn't it?
Everyone says I invented it, but I didn't. But the thing with that was, it was a moment in time where I opened my business in April 2006, as did Melton Notting Hill and Damien and William Curley. We kind of all had businesses at the same time. And the first World Chocolate Awards ran by the Academy of Chocolate happened at that time, as the year before that. And I'd been developing chocolates for a few years while doing freelance work. And it was Chantal Cody, who owned Rococo at the time, who said to me, because she'd tried my chocolates and I'd made some for her shop. That was my very first commission. She said, you really must let Kate Johns try your chocolates. I was like, who's Kate Johns? She'd started National Chocolate Week, which then captured the chocolate awards within it. And Kate and I sat down, had a meeting, and I gave her some chocolates. She went, oh my God, you need to enter these into the Academy of Chocolate Awards. And I went, no way, absolutely not. I'm not a chocolatier. I'm not a trained chocolatier. I haven't got a business. I don't know how to build a website. I was coming up with all the don'ts. I can't build a website. I don't know how to sell them. How can I sell them? Who's going to ever get them? What happened if I did win? Who would be able to buy them? All these things came out, and she went, they're so good, just enter them. And I did. And the salted caramel won a gold, as did another chocolate, and there were 2 silvers as well. But at the time, sea salted caramel was unheard of in this country. There was fleur de sel being put in caramel in Brittany. There was kind of saltwater taffy in the US. Chefs were putting a little bit of salt in, but it certainly was not something we'd had. And I remember being told, even industry-wise, why are you putting salt in caramel? That's really weird. That's really out there. But the fact it won a gold meant my phone started ringing from journalists saying, where can we try your chocolates? Where can we buy your chocolates? So, taking on an opportunity, this is having had an inkling of an idea like a couple of years before of having a chocolate business, but I'm not trained by anyone in chocolate. I'm totally self-taught. I rang my business partner up and said, or my friend James, who became my business partner, and said, you know that little idea we once discussed, tiny little seed of an idea, do you want to do it? Because I'm stood at the Academy of Chocolate Awards and I've just won gold awards and one for my sea salted caramel. And he said yes.
And now you've got this beautiful swirly whirly looking chocolate cookbook coming out. Will a complete beginner be able to make anything from it, or do you have to be quite advanced?
Well, this is my I'm very grateful. It's my 4th book. My first one came out in 2009 and won the best chocolate book in the world. That's another story of not expecting something great. That book has lots of chocolates in it. This book is my love letter to chocolate. This is a book of stories. So there's a lot of words. It's a book of stories, of memories, of nostalgia, of the cocoa bean, of chocolate in popular culture, some of my favourite and best chocolate recipes, some techniques, and lots of playfulness. Because the one thing with chocolate when you first start is you just have to play with it. You have to eat it and taste it, know what it tastes like, know what the textures are, understand it, and then start to play. And I've pulled on lots of my memories and nostalgia in the book. So it could be a book that you could just read and enjoy the stories and information from contributors as well. Or it's a book that you could make the recipes from.
It's me again. Are you hungry for chocolate yet? I hope you loved listening to Paul's incredible career journey as much as I did chatting to him. Paul has definitely worked super hard, but he also benefited from someone believing in him early on and spotting his potential. When you see the Paul A. Youngs and the Gordon Ramsays of this world, it's easy to imagine they had some kind of lucky overnight success. But don't forget, they started off as total beginners too. Now, the truth is, kitchens around the UK, well, around the world really, are crying out for dedicated pastry chefs and specialists. You could start off at catering college like I did, learning the basics of food and hygiene, or you could pay for a fancy course like Leith's Cookery School, or you could simply rock up at your nearest good restaurant and just ask for a job. Starting as an apprentice is still a fantastic way to learn, but please aim high like Paul did and see if you can get work experience leading to paid work at one of the best kitchens around. If you're good, your head chef will be keen to let you try your ideas out until you're eventually making creations for the main menu. Now, a chef's life is not the most lucrative one, especially in those early years, but pay and working hours and benefits are getting so much better. In big cities, a junior full-time pastry chef should be on around $27,000 a year, rising to $30,000 or $35,000 for a chef de partie, $40,000 and upwards for a sous chef, and then $50,000 and above for a head chef level at any Michelin eatery. After this, you could be looking at over $100,000 a year as an executive head chef of a restaurant group or founding your own thing. So if you fancy a taste of what Paul does, keep an eye on his website for any of his masterclasses and mini courses. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the pod. It was lovely to bond with you about chocolate and sausage dogs, and I can't wait to dive into your new book, and we'll pop a link to that at the end of the pod. And thank you for listening. Till next time, goodbye. Before you go, just a reminder about those career events. They're happening in London and Birmingham on the 1st, 2nd and 7th of November. For more information, email info@foodmatterslive.com or go to our website foodmatterslive.com and search career events.